Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly make friends and build strong social networks, while the rest of us struggle to strike up a conversation at a party or wonder how to keep coworkers engaged and supportive on the job? As always, if the ideas we'll talk about today intrigue you, we strongly recommend you buy and read the entire book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, through the link below, so you can absorb all of his invaluable lessons for yourself. But for now, let's dive into the core principles he lays out in this timeless classic and see how they can help you become more likable, more persuasive, and more effective in your personal and professional life. Dale Carnegie's book, first published in 1936, has been around the block more than a few times, and there's a good reason it's been read by countless people for so many decades. The fundamentals of human relationships never really change. No matter how much technology evolves or how quickly our daily routines shift, human beings will always crave recognition, appreciation, and a feeling of connection. The strategies Dale Carnegie shares are all about tapping into these universal human desires in simple but powerful ways. He addresses everything from how to make a great first impression, to how to manage conflicts more effectively, to how to encourage and inspire others when you need them to do their best work. We'll explore these strategies by looking at key ideas, like why you should avoid criticizing others if you can help it, how to show genuine interest in people's lives, and how to cultivate the habit of praising and encouraging others to bring out the best in them. Let's start with a question that goes to the heart of Carnegie's approach. When you meet someone new, do you offer supportive, pleasant comments, or are you tempted to point out flaws? Ironically, the best way to win friends and influence people is to do precisely the opposite of what many of us do instinctively. It's easiest to spot something that's annoying or subpar and point it out. But Carnegie reminds us that criticism almost never changes people's behavior for the better. And in fact, it often leads to resentment that can damage the relationship. He even cites the infamous gangster Al Capone, who saw himself as a benefactor to society despite his violent crimes. The moral of that anecdote is simple. Even people like Capone can rationalize their actions and see themselves as good, so you can imagine how strongly the average person defends themselves when we tell them they've done something wrong. This is why Carnegie encourages us to do as the steel magnate Charles Schwab did. Schwab tried to refrain from criticizing workers directly. Instead, he looked for what they were doing right and praised them whenever he could. You might think that people won't learn from their mistakes if they're not called out, but in reality, people often respond more strongly to positive reinforcement. The next time you're worried someone isn't meeting your expectations, say, a coworker is consistently late on deadlines, it's far more effective to acknowledge something they are doing well and then encourage them to bring that standard to every aspect of their work, rather than simply tearing them down. Praise might feel like letting them off easy, but Dale Carnegie says it's exactly the route that produces results while leaving your relationships intact. Next, think about how dogs interact with humans. We've all seen how a dog greets its owner at the door, wagging its tail, jumping up and down to express unbridled joy. That feeling of being welcomed and adored is a huge part of why people love having dogs in their lives. Now, obviously you're not going to start wagging your tail at your friends or skipping around whenever you see them, but the principle is the same. When you meet someone, greet them warmly, smile as though you're genuinely pleased, and show interest in who they are. Don't worry so much about being interesting yourself. Worry about being genuinely interested in them. People love to talk about their own interests, experiences, and aspirations, which means if you can be the person who listens attentively, you'll naturally become someone people gravitate toward. According to Dale Carnegie, simple efforts like remembering a new friend's name, asking open-ended questions about their life, and giving them your undivided attention as they speak can set you apart in a world where most of us are rushing around, delivering half-hearted greetings, and quickly forgetting people's names. By making the other person feel genuinely appreciated, you create a warmth that fosters trust and likability. A story from the book describes a landscaping inspector who complimented a client's pedigree dogs and found himself in a lengthy conversation about dog breeding. Even more beneficial was that it built such a positive atmosphere that the client ended up surprising the inspector with a gift, a purebred puppy. What Carnegie wants us to remember from examples like this is that people respond strongly to respect and genuine interest. Instead of calculating ways to impress them by talking about our achievements, we should be mindful of how to make them feel recognized and valued. One of the simplest ways to do this is by listening more than we speak. Many of us, especially in social gatherings, get anxious and feel we need to fill silences by talking about ourselves. But think of President Abraham Lincoln, who once spent hours talking to an old neighbor. Not because he wanted advice, the neighbor barely said a word, but simply because he needed someone to listen. So, be someone's sounding board. Ask them about their experiences, their thoughts, their emotions. Take the pressure off yourself by focusing on what they have to say, and you'll find that many people appreciate you deeply for it. This skill is also especially helpful in business. Say you're trying to get along with a new manager or a potential client. If you pose thoughtful questions about their perspective on a project, rather than dominating the conversation with your own suggestions, they'll walk away feeling impressed with your ability to listen and collaborate, even if you hardly said a thing. That leads us to a thorny issue: arguments. In a perfect world, we might avoid verbal disputes, but in reality, disagreements crop up all the time. Carnegie's advice is clear: avoid them whenever possible, because if you win an argument outright by cornering the other person and forcing them to admit you're right, you can count on them silently resenting you. But what if the argument can't be avoided? You might have conflicting ideas at work or a key negotiation that has tension written all over it. Dale Carnegie says honesty and humility go a long way when you're forced into a confrontation. Instead of accusing the other person of being wrong, acknowledge that you may not have all the facts. Invite them to walk through the details with you. Rather than saying, "I'm correct and you're mistaken," say, "I could be wrong. Let's look at this carefully together." Magically, that small shift in language can soften the other person's defenses, because you're validating their viewpoint as worth exploring. And if it turns out that you were wrong, own up to it quickly and gracefully. Don't make them drag out a confession. It might feel daunting to admit mistakes, but people actually respect you far more when you show that level of integrity. If you're right, don't gloat. Let the other person come to the conclusion at their own pace. This approach avoids wounded pride and fosters mutual understanding. One way to make that gentle persuasion even more effective is to get people into a yes mindset from the very start. Dale Carnegie often references Socrates, the ancient philosopher who used a style of dialogue that progressively led people to agree with each point he made, step by step, until they eventually embraced his overall conclusion. The more you can begin a conversation with statements or questions that the other person will naturally agree with, the more likely they are to remain positive and open-minded as you introduce more challenging ideas. By contrast, if your conversation partner starts off by saying no to one or two of your opening statements, it'll be that much harder to get them to come around later. That's because most people want to remain consistent with what they've already said. If they start from a no, their pride often compels them to keep saying no. If they start with a yes, they're more likely to maintain that positive, agreeable stance. This technique can be invaluable in sales, negotiations, or any situation in which you're trying to get someone to adopt a new idea. Another critical piece of the puzzle is to let people arrive at your conclusion in their own way, rather than ramming the idea down their throat. Think of Colonel Edward M. House, who served as an advisor to President Woodrow Wilson. He would never explicitly declare that something was the best idea. Instead, he'd casually mention a suggestion in conversation, dropping hints here and there. By the time President Wilson circled back to the idea, he believed he'd come up with it himself. That might sound manipulative, but it's really about being collaborative. People love their own ideas more than the ideas of others. If you're asking for a big favor or a dramatic shift in policy, you'll see better results if you guide them gently and let them feel ownership of the solution. Now let's talk about perspective taking and empathy. Dale Carnegie says that if you want to change someone's mind or solve a problem with them, you should try putting yourself in their shoes. Consider what's motivating them, what they're afraid of, and what they're hoping to accomplish. A perfect illustration is that elevator situation. The maintenance technician needed a full day to complete some repairs, but the hotel manager balked because he didn't want guests to be inconvenienced. Instead of getting defensive, the technician recognized the manager's perspective. he wanted to keep guests happy, then calmly explained that not doing the repair would eventually mean even larger disruptions. Thus, he aligned his own goal of finishing the repairs with the manager's desire to please the guests, pointing out that the best long-term way to please them was to do the repair now. Problem solved, relationship intact. This kind of move is especially important when someone is clearly upset. Often people just need a bit of sympathy, an acknowledgement in words that their feelings make sense. Saying something as simple as, "I get why you'd be concerned," or "I understand where you're coming from," can do wonders in diffusing anger. By validating the other person's feelings, we remind them that we see them as human. After that, resolution is usually much easier to reach than it would be if you'd started off by telling them how wrong they are. The final principle we'll talk about is how to motivate people over the long run. Once again, the answer is more about building them up than breaking them down. When you expect the best from people, you often get it. Consider the story of Ruth Hopkins, the Brooklyn school teacher who inherited the worst kid in the school, Tommy. Instead of scolding him, she singled him out in front of the class and labeled him a natural-born leader, someone all the other students would look to. Guess what? Tommy started acting like a leader. He wanted to live up to the reputation she had given him. That underscores a pattern we see throughout daily life. If you set a high standard and communicate that you genuinely believe someone can meet it, you might be surprised by how eagerly they try. This can be done in subtle ways too. Dr. Martin Fitzhugh, a dentist, once found that his office cleaner wasn't doing a thorough job. Rather than criticizing her, documenting her faults, or threatening to replace her, Dr. Fitzhugh left a note praising her diligence and thanking her for doing so well. He also mentioned that, of course, if she ever needed extra time to keep the place spotless, he'd be happy to pay for that. Sure enough, from that day on, she kept the office immaculate and never even asked for more money. She simply wanted to live up to the brilliant reputation he gave her. Of course, Dale Carnegie wouldn't suggest we lie or candy coat blatant failures. The key is to find genuine ways to set people up for success by praising their strengths, showing them you notice the good work when it happens, and gently giving them a route to improve. This approach maintains their dignity, and that's crucial if you want to preserve your relationship and keep them motivated. Let's wrap up all these ideas in a neat bundle. According to Dale Carnegie, if you want to win friends and influence people in the most authentic, sustainable way possible, you should avoid criticizing and condemning. Instead, look for ways to compliment and appreciate. Show genuine interest in others, let them talk about themselves, and listen as though you really care. Avoid arguments, and if you must disagree, do it kindly and humbly. Prompt people to say yes to small, undeniable statements before you drop a bigger pitch on them, and let them see that they can arrive at your conclusion themselves without losing face. Nobody likes feeling forced into a corner. Try to see things from their viewpoint. Learn to say, "I understand how you feel," and remember that a sympathetic ear can be more powerful than a scolding voice. Finally, set people up for success by praising them publicly, letting them know that you believe they're capable of more, and giving them a high standard to rise to. Sometimes, simply letting others know that they have your trust and confidence is the best way to bring out their hidden talents. Those are the core lessons from How to Win Friends and Influence People, but there's a reason the book is so beloved by millions, because its examples go well beyond what we can cram into a single summary. If you find yourself wanting more anecdotes, deeper insights, and extra tips on how to apply these principles to modern life, we recommend, as always, that you buy the book through the link below so that you can see Dale Carnegie's timeless wisdom in all its glory. Remember, these insights aren't gimmicks. They're about sincerely respecting and valuing other people, not manipulating them. If you genuinely adopt these attitudes, honest appreciation, empathetic listening, respectful and kind communication, you'll see that people are drawn to you, your influence grows naturally, and you create a more positive environment for everyone. Instead of feeling stressed or anxious about meeting new people or confronting difficult situations, you'll trust that you have the interpersonal skills to turn moments of tension into deeper connection. Try putting some of these ideas into practice in your day-to-day life. Next time a coworker does something right, shoot them a quick, genuine compliment. If you disagree with someone, preface your counterpoint by acknowledging why their viewpoint makes sense. If you only have a couple of minutes to talk with someone, let them do the talking, ask them a question, and then really listen. You'll notice how quickly your interactions improve, and the results might be surprising. People respond to sincerity and empathy in ways that can be truly transformative. And with that, we'll bring this big picture overview to a close. Don't forget, you can grab the complete How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie with the link below to get the full depth of this classic text. It's a blueprint for better relationships and a surefire guide to making a more memorable impact on everyone you meet. Thanks for joining me on this journey through one of the most valuable self-improvement books of all time. And I hope you'll test these insights out for yourself, because they really can change your life for the better. Now go out there, show genuine interest in others, offer them heartfelt praise, and watch how your own friendships and influence begin to flourish.